I remember that camping trip like it was yesterday, though I wish I could forget it. We were just a group of friends seeking a weekend escape into nature's embrace. The forest seemed so inviting at first, with its lush greenery and tranquil ambiance. But as darkness fell, the atmosphere shifted. It started with subtle whispers, almost imperceptible, as if the forest itself was trying to communicate with us. We laughed it off at first, attributing it to our overactive imaginations fueled by the crackling fire and the rustling of leaves. Then came the figures. Shadows danced on the fringes of our campsite, their forms twisted and distorted in the dim light. I could feel their eyes on us, burning into our souls with a chilling intensity that sent shivers down my spine. Every noise in the night became a source of dread, each rustle of leaves a potential threat lurking just beyond our sight. We tried to rationalize it, blaming it on wild animals or the wind, but deep down, we knew something was terribly wrong. Our attempts to leave were futile. It was as if the forest itself conspired against us, twisting and turning the paths until we found ourselves back where we started, trapped in an endless loop of fear and uncertainty. Morning brought no relief, only devastation. Our campsite lay in ruins, as if ravaged by some unseen force in the dead of night. It was a stark reminder that whatever lurked in those woods was not bound by the laws of our world. We fled, hearts pounding, vowing never to return to that cursed place. But even now, years later, the memory of that night still haunts me, a constant reminder of the darkness that lies hidden in the heart of the forest.
I've always loved the serenity of the woods, the whispers of the wind through the trees and the crackle of a campfire. But after that night, the forest feels different. It feels alive, watchful, and hungry. It was supposed to be a weekend of fun, just me and a couple of friends disconnected from the world, surrounded by the untouched beauty of nature. We set up camp near a small clearing, the ground covered in a carpet of fallen leaves and pine needles. The first night was perfect. We told stories, laughed, and enjoyed the warmth of the fire. As the night deepened, we retreated into our tents, the soft hooting of an owl lulling us to sleep. But I woke up to silence, a suffocating, heavy silence that seemed to press against my tent. I thought it was odd. The forest is never silent. I unzipped my tent and stepped out. The fire was out, the embers cold. My friends' tents were open, flapping in a breeze I couldn't feel. They were gone. Panic set in as I called out their names, my voice seemingly swallowed by the trees. That's when I heard it, a soft, sibilant whisper, like leaves rustling, but with intent. "Leave," it hissed, and I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the night air. I gathered what courage I had and ventured into the woods, searching for my friends. The moon was a thin crescent, barely lighting my path. Every shadow seemed to move. Every tree appeared to lean closer, listening. I found my friend's jacket torn, hanging from a branch, no sign of him. I don't remember how long I wandered, but I stumbled upon a clearing I didn't recognize. In the center stood an ancient tree, its bark twisted, forming what looked like faces in agony. The whispers were louder here, a chorus of voices begging me to run. And so I did. I ran until the sun began to rise, and I found myself back at the campsite. My friends were there, packing up, worried sick. They said they'd been looking for me all night, that I had wandered off. But I know what I heard, what I saw. We left the woods quickly, and I never looked back. But sometimes when the night is quiet, I can still hear the whispers, and I wonder, what lives in the heart of the forest, waiting in the silence?
I've been camping all my life, but there's one experience I can't quite shake off. It was a solo trip in the dense forests of the Pacific Northwest, a place where the trees are so tall they seem to touch the sky. I found a spot by a river, the sound of rushing water a constant companion. The first day was peaceful, just me and nature. But as night fell, a sense of unease crept over me. The forest, usually alive with nocturnal sounds, fell eerily quiet. I shrugged it off as fatigue and zipped myself into my tent. Sometime in the middle of the night, I woke up to a strange sensation, like being watched. I listened intently, but heard nothing. No animals, no wind, nothing. I stepped outside, the beam of my flashlight cutting through the darkness. That's when I noticed my food supplies had been rummaged through, but oddly, nothing was taken. The next day, I found tracks around my campsite, large, unidentifiable prints that didn't match any animal I knew. They circled the tent and then disappeared into the woods. I followed them until they vanished at the edge of a steep ravine. That night, the feeling of being watched returned, stronger. I heard soft footsteps outside the tent, deliberate and cautious. I called out, challenging the intruder, but the footsteps stopped and silence returned. I spent the night awake, clutching my knife. In the morning, I decided to pack up and leave. As I folded my tent, I found a small hand-carved figurine buried in the dirt, a figure with no face, just smooth wood. It felt like a warning, a message from someone or something that wanted me to leave. I've never been superstitious, but I couldn't ignore the feeling that I'd trespassed into a territory that wasn't mine to occupy. I left the figurine on a rock by the river, a silent apology or an offering of peace, and I hiked out without looking back. I still camp, but I avoid that part of the forest. Some places, I've learned, are best left alone, respected from a distance. And sometimes the most believable horror isn't about ghosts or monsters. It's about the unsettling feeling that we're not alone and the unseen eyes that watch from the shadows.